Welcome back to The Backmarkers, the F1 podcast for new fans, by new fans. My name is Mike Hurley, and I'm joined by my team principal, Austin Evans. Hi, Austin.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to 2023. How was the winter break for you?
Winter break's been good. I got to that point, I think, in the season where I was like, I've had a real good time here, but I think I'm good now. And then the season went away. Now I cannot wait for this weekend. My hype levels right now are off the charts. Like today, as we recorded, they released the opening titles. It's one of my favorite parts of the year when they release the opening titles. Baby, oh yeah, I'm so in. How was your winter break, Austin?
Good. I was in the exact same boat. I think last year was their first full year. Oh, look at you. Look at you. Your Mercedes.
If you're watching live, remember we record this live. We record it on video as well as the audio. I am drinking a very clear Mercedes Energy today. No other brands acceptable. Mercedes Energy only.
Clearly Rich Energy 2.0. But
Mercedes Energy. I looked forward to it, and it let me down a little bit. You know what I mean?
No, man, but no, it was a good break. I totally agree. I think last year with us doing the shows every single week, or well, every single race, it was a lot. I can't imagine what it's like to actually have to travel from place to place, dealing with the jet lag. Like, I think us just recording this show last year gave me a lot more appreciation for the drivers, and especially the teams who have to pack everything up, fly to the next place, and do that over and over and over again. But I will say it is very good to be back.
That's actually a pretty nice segue into our new segment, scheduling discussions. So this is a new season, right? We're back. We're still doing the show. We are not going to be recording an episode for every race this year. And the Backmarkers is something I love doing because I love this sport and I love spending time with Austin. We both love doing this together. It got to a point last year where just our lives were made more complicated because I had to always watch the races in my studio. You know, we couldn't just, it was difficult if I wanted to like watch a race somewhere else. We recorded some when we were both on vacations. So this year we will not have a fixed schedule. So we have the preseason and we'll obviously have a postseason. My expectation is we will do episodes frequently enough throughout the year, big news, and just if we want to do one. So we're going to be infrequent now as a schedule, but you can expect us to be in your podcast player or your YouTube subscription feed multiple times this year.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's just definitely one of those things where I think for our sanity, it is much nicer because in the middle of our weekends, it's one thing to watch the race. And like you said, it's a very different thing for us to go through and set up all the recording gear and say, oh, sorry, I'll see you in a couple hours. It's time to go record. So I'm happy for us to not have to just do every single episode, even when some of the boring races are there, but to really focus the show on the big moments, the big things we really want to talk about. And hopefully you enjoy the ride.
Yeah, I would say people probably don't need our opinions on every single race, right? And so, considering we're not commentators in that way, more, fans, then I think it makes more sense for us to just jump in multiple times this year, let you know how we're feeling about the season, what's going on, what's not. So that's what you can expect from us this year. And this episode, we're starting out action-packed. We have so many things to get to. Shall we start with Drive to Survive? I think chronologically that makes the most sense. So we start with something from last year before moving to this year. So can I start the discussion with a quick statement about Drive to Survive Season 5?
Please do.
It's just a one-line thing. Return to form.
Yes. Yes. Yep. I completely agree.
They went off the rails for Season 4.
Yeah, and to be fair, they did put a little bit of that in. I don't know if you saw, I forget what episode it was, but they did kind of allude to a little bit of the Daniel and Lando kind of like stuff. And they definitely were using some not particularly flattering clips of Lando from time to time talking about Daniel, which, again, I think we discussed this a little bit last year. Yeah. I do believe that there was a tiny bit of something there, nowhere near what the way that they had kind of blown it up to be. But on the whole of it, a much more reasonable, a much more realistic season, especially after the criticism, which I think was incredibly strong. Not only last year, some other seasons as well. famously, Max didn't really take part in Drive to Survive for season 4, which he is back for season 5. But I definitely think that they struck a much more reasonable balance, if maybe not the absolute most exciting episode or season of the show they've ever made.
So what I liked about it is that they just spent more time focusing on the actual stories that happened rather than trying to find things that didn't. You know, and you mentioned it, right? It was, I actually think the Carlos and Lando theme from season 3 was worse because, like, there was no trouble between the two.
Yeah.
But they tried to make it so. And with Daniel and Lando, my kind of feeling on that, because I noticed it in the episode too, is that I think that Lando, for some reason, maybe I don't know if the issue is Lando or Daniel Ricciardo, that the press kept asking these kinds of questions, like, do you have sympathy?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not really sure what that was about. Like, I feel like this is not a thing that we hear with other team pairings of, like, the people want to know, oh, do you feel bad for your teammate? Like, and I really like the way that Lando just answered, but no, I don't. Like, I have no sympathy for him, and he shouldn't have to have sympathy for him because he's not performing in the same car. But anyway, just in general, this season did such a good job of focusing on the actual stories. I absolutely loved. My favorite part was the double episode about the McLaren Alpine Oscar Piastri thing, even though they took a bit of a shortcut. But like the actual end of that story did play out in a contract law court, and they just were like, everyone settled it and it's fine. Like, but I understand sometimes you've just got to jump to the end if it's the result is still the same. But it was fascinating to see the week-to-week inner workings of that whole thing.
Yeah.
There was some interesting editing which didn't really make sense to me as such, like with Otmar talking about like seemingly unprompted the amount of investment they put into Oscar Piastri. Like, I'm not sure that was something that he would really care about. I mean, it didn't seem like to the outside they were ever considering him earlier than they were, if that makes sense. Like, it never felt like at any point until it happened that he was going to be in the Alpine seat in 2023. Like, they would have kept Alonso and they weren't getting rid of Ocon. So, like, it was a strange thing anyway, and that's why Piastri did what he did, and I respect him for that. I thought he came off pretty well in the whole thing. But yeah, I loved that. I felt like they got all the right footage at all the right time, all the right conversations. Like the catching the live reactions to Seb. Oh, when like Perez was doing an interview, right? That was so good.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. It was like, no, Seb has Instagram? That was so good.
No, I think that was probably my biggest takeaway of this season. They had so many more team principals mic'd for so many key moments. Like, clearly in the past, there were some moments where, like, obviously the team invited Netflix down when they're gonna, sign someone or whatever, like for some of these bigger moments, or they're gonna clandestinely meet behind the paddock, whatever nonsense like that, right? But it felt like this time, it was great to see like Otmar and Zach like walking back and forth. It's you kind of imagine. You always hear these stories about team principals and drivers kind of taking meetings with other teams and all this kind of sort of shady sort of dealings. But it's another thing when you see like literally Otmar or Zach just walking into the other teams like, hey, and you talk to Zach or whatever, and just walking in and just like obviously them still being mic'd up. Like, I sometimes wonder how much the team principals and the drivers and stuff really forget that they're on hot mics.
I think they forget all the time.
And I understand it too, because I wear a lot of like microphones, like lavs like that are mounted to my shirt, and obviously typically I put this little mute button that I press when I'm walking out to go to the bathroom or whatever. But so often I've been like out to lunch and I still have a microphone on or whatever, and it's just you don't think about. So you imagine when almost every second in the paddock is being sort of recovered. Like the one shot, I was really surprised when they did the Daniel episode, and Daniel was kind of like, Checo was asking like, oh, when did you find out? And you can tell he's kind of whispering because the audience is there and the press is there. And he's like, oh, it's over the winter break. We were talking about it. Like, but the fact that they were like whispering about that and it was still clearly picked up, it's just like one of those things where it's like, damn, man, like as a driver, you got to be careful. Obviously it makes great TV, but you got to be careful because there's so much stuff there that clearly no one really wanted to be publicized.
I think Christian Horner got bit by that a few times when they were doing the cost cap episodes. Like, him to the camera. No, it's all good. We didn't do nothing. And then like behind the scenes, oh no, all the headlines tomorrow. It's gonna be so bad. Like I thought that was really interesting. The cost cap thing. So that's the thing. The cost cap and the McLaren Alpine Piastri thing were the biggest drama parts of the season, with one asterisk we'll get to in a minute. Behind the scenes, like the team stuff.
Yeah.
And I love that they gave big episodes to those things. Like, that is exactly what I want to be seeing from Drive to Survive. Like, not just showing what the on-track stuff was like, but also trying to give a view to people of the drama, the politics, the real stuff that's happening. Because in seasons 1 and 2, that was what drew me in. And I think it's what drew most people in, of like seeing the inner workings and like the Game of Thrones-ness of it all, I think is what makes the sport enticing to new Drive to Survive fans. And I'm happy that they went back to that rather than like, these guys hate each other, let's try and show you why, right? Like, I just think it was good. All of the cost cap stuff was fascinating. Again, it was like they kind of left Aston Martin out because Aston Martin did also breach, right? Like, not in the same way, but like they did all, but they were just like, whatever, don't worry about it. But that was interesting.
Yeah, I think they did a good job of cleanly telling a lot of these stories, right? Especially if you look at like the episodes, right? So the episodes, there's 10 episodes, and all of them were relatively short, but the first few were much longer, and the rest of them were all like 30-ish minutes. And I like that they chose to do that, and I like that they chose to really kind of silo each thing. Obviously, as someone who watched the entire season and was really trying to stay plugged in, I was well aware of a lot of that stuff. But especially, like, I know in Drive to Survive, sometimes in the past, it gets a little muddy. There's so many like people, so many characters, so many things to keep track of. It was nice, like, oh, they did a Pierre and Yuki episode. They did an episode with all about like team principles, and at the end, and blah blah blah. Like, they kind of really sort of broke things down. I think a nice sort of very easy to digest sort of way. So yeah, generally, like, really really happy with the season. Like, I think that they did a lot of things right, and I absolutely love the way they started the season with Mattia and Gunther in the little Fiat driving around. Look,
Gunther is the star.
Star. 100%.
Especially now, and I loved the like in memoriam to Daniel Ricciardo that they did at the end, right? When they did the like, it's like but like for them, it is a problem, right? Daniel Ricciardo has been the star of the show. I can't even tell you why, really. He seems like a nice guy. And also, like, he was the big silly season thing, right? In the first season. So they kind of just, like, followed him around a lot. And he's a likable guy. People got to him. But now, Gunther's the star. Gunther's the star of the show. Everyone was making jokes at him, right? As they're walking around. Like, I loved all of that. Like, that was super good.
We should make a drinking game next year. Every time he says I have to call Gene,
take
a shot.
I make fun of it so much when we're watching it at home. I'm like, oh, he's gonna have to go call Gene now. Poor Gunther.
It's so great. Good though, and I just love, like, honestly, Gunther is so, like, you can tell that, like, I'm sure Drive to Survive is a major reason why Haas are still in the sport and Gunther still has his job. Like, I feel pretty confident that is at least a consideration, because he is the star of that. Like, none of the other team principals come close. Like, obviously Toto and all the other guys, and like I would say Christian's probably the next closest to like being an actual star of the thing. But like, dude, the line, oh my god, dude, there's so many funny lines, but the line where he's like, I'm gonna hug the paddock, I was laughing out loud on the plane at like, and he's like, what did I say? What's the problem? We go, wait, we apologize for the language.
That was like his introduction to the season as well. I think it was like after the wine thing, it's like that's him, like, oh, I'm in. One of the things I found funny in the whole season is like, it's the way they presented it. Silverstone was the most important race of the year, right? Like, we watched the Silverstone thing like 4 times, and it was a pivotal moment for a bunch of reasons, and like it played into a lot of the stories they wanted to tell. But it is just funny that like, it's just the way it goes, right? That some season, I mean, because again, it's like really the season was done about halfway through, right? Like from the constructors' part, but like that race, that Silverstone race was a big deal. Like, it was a big deal. It was a big deal in the Mercedes story, right? I think things could have looked very different for them. Like, they probably would have got 2 on the podium that weekend. I mean, that was their best shot at it. It was their first shot at it. And of course, you've got, the story of so many cars getting knocked out in that. Like, it really did help. Like, it was like a kind of a splintering point for a bunch of the stories that were going on. But it was just kind of funny that, like, how many different ways they tried to show the accidents. I liked the Yuki episode too.
It was sweet.
It kind of makes me feel sad for Yuki,
Yeah.
really. Like, I feel for
He's
the
in a no-win
guy.
situation.
No. And I will say Nick DeVries, it's like, oh. Like, don't know much about the guy. Like, I've seen some stuff from here and there, but he seems serious. So they also did a really good job, I think, of setting up this year, like more than they do normally.
Yes.
Like they spent a lot of time with the rookies that are coming in, and also at the end, right? Like getting them all to sit down and be like, these are the faces now. Like get to know all these guys. Maybe one minor critique, one bigger minor critique. They didn't pay enough attention to Seb. I don't know if he didn't want to be involved very much, but like Daniel Ricciardo, bless him, not as important as Seb for not like because Daniel's still around, right? Like was like, what happened to Latifi? It's like no one worries about that.
Did he get like I saw him for like a second as like in passing, and that was it.
But to be fair, that was what it was like for us at the end of the season, right? It was like, oh, Seb's retiring. Oh, poor Danny Rick. Oh, and I guess Nicholas Latifi's gone as well. Like that was what it was like. So it kind of wasn't really much point in doing things.
I mean, they gave some time to Mick. I mean, I get obviously that they're making entertainment. They're not just giving you a dry, boring recap.
And Mick has a good life story. Like Mick's just overall story is a good one, right? To kind of play.
And that was amazing old footage that they pulled up of Michael Schumacher and
the Verstappens.
Yeah, Verstappen, and like talking about like how they were like going out on holiday together and stuff. That was really cool, and especially that clip of like, oh, are your sons gonna be Formula One drivers or whatever? And they're like, yeah, we're gonna drive or whatever. It's like, oh wow, that's just like really neat stuff. Like I had never seen that before. So
there is something about that makes me feel sad for Mick Schumacher though.
Of course, he had a shot and
but like when you're like, oh, Mick and Max grew up together and they're gonna fight out. No, they're really not. One of them is a once in a lifetime driver. Like it's not. I don't think so. Can we talk about Max?
Let's talk about Max.
All right.
Okay, should we just get the elephant in the room out of the way?
Yeah.
The whole Monaco thing, because they completely washed over that.
They whitewashed this completely. I honestly don't even understand why they made an episode about it. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, because like they tried to make this whole thing, and I mean, to be fair, the way that they showed it does make it seem absolutely ludicrous that Checo tried to do that on purpose, right? To try to hold on to third at Monaco over fourth or whatever. Yeah. Like, to be fair, I still don't believe that Checo did that on purpose. Like,
I don't. I've never believed it.
It's such a galaxy brain kind of move of like how you're going to know that it's going to rain and that the Ferrari's going to have these problems and everything just to get like an extra position.
Yeah,
like
but also like getting third at Monaco means you're going to finish third at Monaco. Like it's not like in my mind, I'd forgotten this story. And because I knew that Checo won Monaco, right? So in my mind, it was, he was first and crashed so he could maintain his first. But no, he was third. And like the thing, but the story goes, right, that the reason that Max got very upset in Brazil and would not let Checo past him was because of Monaco. That was what was said, and it was said widely enough that it seems like it was true, right? But I mean, that he had some kind of grudge against him that they worked out. But the thing that I also don't understand is, like, they had Max talk about it, and he was just like, it happens.
Yeah, which...
I didn't get that. I didn't get it. It just didn't make sense to me. It kind of was like... They're obviously aware enough, right? That Drive to Survive. It honestly feels like, and I think a lot of people have made this comparison, it's like, did Red Bull have some kind of control, or Max have some kind of control about how this was said for him coming back to the show for this season? Like, I don't think I believe that, really. But I don't understand why they even had the Monaco thing as a thing, because it puts this bit of highlight on it. But maybe they want that too. I don't know.
I mean, I do understand that that was a pivotal moment for Checo. He won this huge prestigious race. He was able to get his contract extension. Like that was a big story. I understand that, and I do, if I'm being charitable, understand it from the Drive to Survive perspective of that you're going to paint the champion Max in this sort of super negative light based on rumors, which I don't think you're probably gonna get a lot of good tape on people like you're probably not getting a bunch of people saying like, yeah, Max clearly did this or that, and especially if Max is being like, oh, it's no big deal. Like they probably would have had to really heavily spin it to include that, even though it does seem pretty likely that there was something much more nefarious going on. But I do kind of understand. That being said, I don't believe that Red Bull said no. I believe that the producers probably said, we don't have a lot of great tape to make this story. It's going to very much upset Red Bull, who are really the stars, especially Christian. Like it seems like they hang out at Christian's house every other weekend to like shoot the doc and stuff. So I do understand why they didn't include it. It is just a rumor. But like, I think at the very least, there could have been like some allusion to like something was going on, because they definitely did not make Max look bad at all. And I think that he absolutely made a fool of himself at Brazil.
I don't understand why they didn't end the episode with the Brazil footage. Like,
yeah,
why not just do
they're
that?
trying to make it
like, well, why not just do
promo, man? They're trying to be promo. They're trying not to make the world champion look bad. They want people to watch it. They don't want people to actively dislike Max and then not want to watch it.
Why?
Or they don't want to upset F1 or whatever the case is. Like,
yeah,
I get it. They shouldn't have done it, but I do kind of understand for them.
I agree with you. Like, I understand why they didn't do it. But it was also just all of it was strange. Like, you could have told the Checo story without including any footage from qualifying at all.
Yeah. Totally.
The qualifying part wasn't important because, like, they were trying to paint it as, like, he's unreliable and keeps crashing and all that kind of stuff, which I actually don't think was realistic about Checo at that time. Like, the Red Bull was having problems. But, yeah, it was a strange story to tell out of all the stories that they could have told, knowing full well the ramifications of that incident. That was like the weird part of it. But I agree, like they should. No, I was gonna say they should have the world champion involved. I don't agree with that because last year he wasn't involved and you wouldn't have noticed, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
This year he maybe spoke to the camera twice, and none of the things were really worth adding in. Like, I don't think they need the participation of everyone to be able to tell the stories that they want to tell.
Yeah, I do think that there's probably broader things at play. Like, obviously, they want to continue to have the license to make this. And I know F1 wants it, but also I'm sure there are certain lines where, whether it's the teams or whether it's F1 themselves or whatever, are going to be like, nah, this is too much or whatever. Yeah. Like, I'm sure that that's at least a consideration when they're crafting these episodes and crafting these narratives.
If
and stuff.
F1 have some kind of handle in it, they don't want to make it look like one of their drivers is fixing the sport for himself.
Correct. And to be fair, the way I understand it, Drive to Survive does have full creative freedom, right? Like, F1 cannot just come in and veto things as far as I know. However, what F1 can do is if they don't like it, they just won't let them make another season, right? I think that's kind of the way the difference is, which ultimately at the end of the day, this is a very successful thing for everyone involved. And I'm sure there's a lot of pressure to kind of sweep some things under the rug at certain points, especially if they don't have a super compelling way to tell. Like, if they had a smoking gun of Max being like, yeah, F you, Checo, or whatever the case is, if they had something like that, I do think they probably would have included it because that would have been such an amazing bit of tape.
Yeah, I guess.
They didn't have a great way of telling it, and they're going to really jeopardize things. So I'm sure they're like, you know what? Let's just let this thing move on, and we'll just kind of forget about it. But yeah, man, it was a good season, though. I very much enjoyed it. It felt like it was well-paced. There was a lot of good information. And as always, especially, after the last couple of years, which were less than stellar, very much got me excited for the season. Me too. Refreshed, ready to go. And we've got a lot to talk about with the season, too, because the Drive to Survive is only just a small part of the episode today.
So let's go through these again. We'll go through in chronological order. We will do livery review.
Yes. Last year was wildly exciting, right? Because we had not only brand new liveries, but also we had brand new cars. So it's our first time seeing the actual 2022 cars. For 2023, the cars are essentially the same. There are some minor differences with some detail pieces and obviously evolution, but I would say you really can't tell a 2023 car apart from a 2022, which means that the liveries, I think, are by and large not wildly exciting. Are there any standouts? Do you maybe just want to go through them one by one and kind of vote them? How do you feel?
I think we should try and rank them.
Okay.
And I think this time we should try and come up with some kind of consensus to the ranking.
Got it.
Right?
Okay.
We should start with probably what's bottom, which is Red Bull.
I will say I would have to think a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be bottom, but definitely bottom tier. So I would be okay putting Red Bull on bottom for now because it's the exact same as last year and as the last.
It's
10
the
years or
exact
whatever.
same of a non-exciting livery. It's just
Yep.
the blue and the Rebel logo. And now,
It's classic,
really, they're
but-
now Oracle. Right? It's the name that you would get from Red Bull.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a classic, but like it doesn't
It is
excite
pretty
me in
iconic. Like,
any way.
I do agree, but you could also say the same thing about like, the old Williams or the old McLaren or whatever. And like, people maybe were saying like, oh, it's just white and orange, whatever. And then now it's an absolute classic. I think it will age well, but I agree. They just aren't changing it. They just keep it the same year after year after year.
So it's the RB19. I actually have the perfect counterpoint for you, which is Ferrari.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I mean,
Right?
that is actually properly iconic.
Which is the next one, where like that is an iconic thing where realistically it's just a red car every time. But this Ferrari is sick. They fixed it. They fixed last year's Ferrari. Do you know why, Austin? Because this color's red. It ain't maroon. It's actually red this time. Ferrari, 5 stars, top of the list. Love it. I love the Ferrari.
I will say I was a huge fan of the livery last year. I do think that this red is better, but I also will say that there is a very much a black theme going throughout, largely due to weight savings. A lot of
genius,
teams are,
right?
are basically trying to save that, few hundred grams or however much it costs. Actually, I don't know how much it weighs to paint a whole car, but whatever the case is, most people are trying to save the weight by just using the exposed carbon. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think a carbon fiber looks dope, right? Like absolutely. And, a black F1 car is cool, but obviously, while it's not all red, but I think the red and the black of the Ferrari, top tier for me. Again, I think we should go through them. Go ahead.
No, I was saying if I love this Ferrari, but if we're talking red and black, I think there is a better red and black car later on.
Okay.
But this Ferrari, I love it. They've gone for all the right color for me. Like this is the amount of black that they have is fitting. It doesn't take it over, and they've done it in the right places. They've also done it in a way where you can actually read the numbers on the wing now, which has always been a problem with Ferraris. Do you remember the green?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my
They had
God.
the yellow last year, which I don't really have. I'm looking at the car. I don't think there's really any yellow besides obviously like the Ferrari logo on the shell and stuff. So I think much
All red.
cleaner. Terrific. So why don't we do this? Why don't we just say for now Red Bull then Ferrari, and then we'll keep slotting them in as we go.
Whoa. No. Ferrari, Red Bull.
Oh, sorry. Ferrari, Red Bull. Yeah,
I was going to say,
Ferrari
I'm
is
not
like-
having that. Ferrari over Red Bull. All right.
Yes,
We're talking about all black carbon fiber. Look at my boys. The Mercedes is sick, and it's so smart, right? Because they're going with the all black, as much carbon fiber as possible. Throwback to last good season, right? And I love the Mercedes. I don't love George's green. I don't know why they've done that
No,
because
the
George
yellow's
is
much better than
blue,
green.
right? George is blue, like his color. I don't know why they went with that weird green, but I think Mercedes sick. What, you don't like it, do you?
Mike, this is the worst one on the grid.
All right,
They didn't
well, I
do
don't know.
anything. Bro, it's literally black and some
no.
stickers. There's no design.
There's more thought than Red Bull.
There's nothing.
What are you talking about?
They didn't design their car this year.
This is smart. Yeah, they did. Here it is. It's got black and it's got bits of blue on it.
What? That's not. The cars are black carbon fiber. They didn't do anything.
Appreciate
There's
the
no-
genius.
Mike,
I tell you what, I'll put it all the way
drinking-
down. I'll put it all the way down because I understand what you're
Okay.
saying. But this is more exciting than Red Bull. It is more exciting than Red Bull.
You know what? Just because you're drinking a little too much Mercedes energy, I'll say that Mercedes goes above Red Bull.
Yeah.
But boy, they didn't design a livery this year. They
I
spent the
love
budget
it.
on other stuff.
This to
I
me is better
guess.
if they would have gone silver. If they would have gone silver, that's boring. This is at least something. Mercedes is the only team, really, well, Bob might be one other, that's actually like, hey, our car is fundamentally different looking this year. Isn't that like the whole point of it for us?
Yeah. I just feel like they just put some stickers on the car that came out of the factory. They didn't paint it. They just threw some stickers on it and called it a day. I can't. Okay. All right. We'll agree to disagree here.
Yeah.
I'm okay to put Mercedes above Red Bull because again, Red Bull just didn't do anything, so
Yeah.
I think they're equally guilty. But like, yeah.
All right,
How about
Alpine.
Alpine?
Let's exclude the pink livery because that's nonsense.
Agreed. It's-
right?
Yeah.
That's stupid. The blue pink, again, I will say for Alpine, they have a very good design in general. Like, I think the blue and pink, I don't know why it works as well as it does, but it does. And so like, I actually think that they've done a good job. The blue continues to be that like metallic. And they have integrated black, like everybody else, really well into the car
I
of
agree with
like
that,
blocking
yeah.
off the colors. I actually really like the Alpine this year.
I fully agree.
All right.
I think blue and pink are quite complementary colors. I don't like it as much as Ferrari, for reference, but I think it's a clean design. I think it looks nice. I wish they would stop doing the all pink because I just think the BWT is just. I mean, it's literally like they have the giant stickers everywhere. It just looks a little silly.
One
But I
of the
think
most awkward moments of Drive to Survive is when Otmar had to go meet the BWT team, and they're just like, "Oh, Otmar!" It's like, "Oh, I can't. I would die if I was Otmar in that moment."
well, you know though that's why the drivers complain because like all the drivers and team principals, but especially the drivers, they have to do those things
Yeah.
probably dozens of
Yeah.
times a year, right? Going to sponsored dinners, and doing talks, and going to conferences and stuff. So you understand why drivers hate dealing with this because it's just like, yay,
Yep.
I'm gonna go tell the same thing about why perseverance is important, blah blah
Yep.
blah. But yes, I will say thumbs up on Alpine, below Ferrari, but above everything else.
All right. Yeah, I'm with you on that. McLaren, I don't think I don't understand. I loved the delivery originally. Now I can't stand it. I don't know what it is. There's
It's
something
bad.
about the way they've done it this year where like I don't know if it's because it's Chrome, but I feel like the McLaren is like a poorly designed web page where
It is
there are ads
so messy.
everywhere. Like I don't like it at all. For me, I'm trying to decide, is it above or below Red Bull? I think it's below Red Bull because I at least
yes,
like to look at the Red Bull. It doesn't offend me. I don't understand what's happened because I loved McLaren last year. But this year, they've tweaked it in just enough way, put more black in, and now it just looks like a mess. It just looks like a mess.
Completely agree. I think they definitely stripped a lot of the paint back. So I mean, I feel like the last year's car was a lot more orange. This is like primarily black with some orange sort of accents, but it's the color scheme is fine. I
Yeah.
like orange. I think black. The amount of ads they have on this car feels like Ricky Bobby. Like the only thing we don't have is Lando with a like I don't know a chrome logo across his visor, so we can't see right. Like I
Yeah.
think it's rough. So I would say McLaren bottom tier, no doubt.
Correct, in my opinion, too. All right. So Circa, talk about red and black, all right, from earlier. Alfa Romeo. This car is awesome.
It is very nice. I'm a sucker for red and black. I think it looks better than last year. I actually did rate last year's design pretty nicely.
Yeah.
So I'll be curious to see so I know last year's design had like this sort of weird like sort of wheel configuration where basically as the wheels spun,
I
they kinda
hated
looked-
it.
Yeah, it didn't look great. They're trying something else again this year, which is the right thing, by the way. I think all the wheels on the F1 cars are ugly and stupid. I wish that they had like some better designs. I understand they're trying to be more aerodynamic and less outwash, blah blah. But I just think they don't look great.
Yep.
But that being said, I think that just the red accents will look good in motion and still. And
Yep.
I don't like it as much as the Ferrari, I will say. But
Okay.
I do think it's a close second to me. I think it looks very nice. I just think that Ferrari is so clutch that this
I will
is
agree with you.
still largely black. Also, the amount of stake ads on here, especially considering
They're now title sponsor. It's Alfa
Yeah.
Romeo stake, I think. I'm not excluding that. I'm just saying like that's something that happened on the day they
Yeah.
announced their car. They announced a new title sponsorship with stake, which I think is a sports betting company.
Yes, and it's just I get it. I there's some stuff I'm not personally a huge fan of with the company, and some of the ways that they operate.
Yeah, I've never heard of
That-
them before.
So they're the ones who they sponsor a bunch of people. If you've ever seen Drake and his mini gambling antics, it's almost always on stake. I believe he's either sponsored or he owns part of the company or whatever
Yeah, no
nonsense.
idea.
Like
I don't know about that.
yeah, but again, we went through a year of all crypto sponsors. Now I feel like we got to move on to sports betting or whatever comes next.
There's still
I
some
will say-
crypto, but this is not as much crypto.
yeah,
Less crypto.
Yeah. So are we okay putting Alpha in number 2 below Ferrari at the moment?
Yeah, I think that Alfa Romeo have done a better job of red and black, right? Like that their red and black is better, but just the Ferrari red is so striking this year. I will say this isn't in the images that we're looking at here, but the Alfa Romeo has the Italian flag across the back wing, which is
very
which
nice.
is fantastic. Which
Yeah.
is close. I will say for me, it is a toss up between Ferrari and Alfa Romeo, but for this list, I'm happy to put Ferrari above. Now, Aston Martin. Now, this is interesting because like McLaren, they didn't do anything, but Aston Martin aged better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So supposedly they changed the green, so it's apparently going to look better on TV. Now I've never seen the Aston in person, so I can't really judge for that. I actually thought it looked fine
So
on
did
TV.
I.
I get that maybe sometimes it looked a little dark or didn't really pop as much, so I get they did that. But yeah, I mean, they didn't change it, but I think they already had a terrific design.
Yep.
I'm tempted to rank this pretty highly, especially
Yep.
because unlike most of the other teams, while there is some black, there is some exposed carbon fiber. This is actually a proper livery, and I would say that the sort of non-painted sections are very much kept to a minimum. And I think that's my rule for this year. If you didn't paint your car, you get thumbs down from me. So I'm tempted to put this above Alpine. Honestly,
I'm
I like it a
on
lot.
board with that. I'm on board with
Okay.
that.
So between Aston and
Between
Alpine,
Alpha and
Or,
Alpine.
Alpha and yeah.
All right, so now we move on to Haas.
Ugh.
You don't like the
It's
Haas?
better. It's okay.
I
It's
like the
it's
Haas.
Here's the thing, and this is actually going to be the exact counterpoint to McLaren. If you look at the Haas, it's like they don't have enough sponsors.
Well,
Like,
that's
you
a
can tell-
problem for Haas in general. But congratulations, Haas. Haas MoneyGram. I'm very happy for them that they have like a
much.
real, actual, genuine company that is giving them money. That is very good. I think this is great for Haas. I'm very happy for them. And
Yes.
I'm sure
Yes.
you've seen Haas and their tiny pit wall. Have you seen this?
Yes.
They have
I
a
have. So
three-person pit wall, which is going to save them a bunch of money, apparently, which
Great.
fine, you know?
And this is the first time Haas has ever been able to actually operate at the cost cap, which I still think we should keep a little bit lower expectations. But I mean, Haas has been a shadow of a team for many years now, and I think it seems like they're actually on the up and up. So this livery is fine. I will say it probably will rank it above the bottom. I just think it looks aggressively boring. It looks like a concept car. It is just black with some white
All
and a
right.
little bit of red. It looks like, you know what this is? This looks like the livery I would design if I'm playing F1. And that's not
So-
a resounding recommendation.
Above or below Mercedes?
Above Mercedes. Mercedes is bad.
You're crazy. But I will give that to you. I'll put it there. Because I actually, when I saw this, because Haas were first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, ooh, because I hadn't realized, or no one had realized that everyone was going black this year. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's different. I like it. So I will give them that. I will say I like the Haas more than you do. I actually think the Haas is pretty good. Like, I'm a fan of it.
It's fine. It's just aggressively generic. But it also is much cleaner. I will give them that. It is much cleaner than the McLaren, which has roughly one sponsor per square inch on the entire car. But
Yeah, but again, I don't know if that's necessarily Haas's choice.
fair enough. Fair enough.
But I will say, like, Haas get on TV a lot, and they're on Drive to Survive a lot. Like, I actually
True.
think that they were I bet a good deal because people know them, right? Like, if you're coming into the sport, you know who Haas is, which is good. Alpha Tauri.
I could go one of two ways on this. I think on one side, this is the team that has a 100% painted car, or at least almost entirely painted car. Pretty much everything else has significant black. This is pretty much all blue, all white. And I like, obviously, we're just looking at the renders, so it might be a little different person, but it also feels like it's a nicely designed car. If you look at the white, it's not actually like white. It's almost like a subtle gray.
Yep.
You can tell that AlphaTauri, as a fashion brand, put real effort into designing a car. Like, okay, so compare this to the Haas, right? Both seem to have roughly the same amount of sponsors, which is not a lot. But the AlphaTauri actually has a cool design, right? Like the entire engine cover looks great. The Red Bull logo looks great. The fact that, you know, they've got that little Orlan sort of pops of red everywhere, and that also matches on the wheels. Like, this is a incredibly competently well-designed car. I can't say it's as iconic as like a Ferrari or something, but like if you're just objectively looking at this as a livery design, especially considering that most people just stripped all the paint off and called it a day, this is incredibly high for me. I love this. But
So one thing I will say is these are all of. I wouldn't be surprised if the cars that have a lot of paint on them might not have as much paint on them come race day.
sure,
Right?
sure,
Like
very
if you've
reasonable.
designed your livery and now everyone's like, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
But this is how they are now. What I will say about AlphaTauri is this is what Red Bull should do. Because
Yes.
realistically, this is the same as the AlphaTauri looks always, but it's different. Right? Like last year it was shinier. This year it looks more matte in its design. Like I think that this is a good like enhancement and twist on their standard design, which I would like to have seen Red Bull do. I also think this AlphaTauri It's very classy. I think it is the
Yeah.
classiest looking. I can't tell you why I feel that way, but there's just something about it. I think it's done really nicely.
Yeah.
They don't have like quote unquote like big sponsors because they kind of are. It's kind of like Red Bull, really, right? Like it is itself a sponsorship, kind of like Haas is, has been. So I would put the Alpha Tauri personally in between Alpine and Haas.
I can agree with that. I could be persuaded to go above Alpine, but I think that's a perfectly reasonable spot for them.
I think that the Alpine will look more exciting on the track.
I agree. The only thing that really holds us back is that while I think it's a really nice design, it's not that iconic. The colors are fairly muted, and I don't think people look at AlphaTauri and think like, "Oh my God, these years of pedigree and all this kind of stuff." It's just a nicely designed car in a vacuum, but it doesn't have a whole lot of additional kind of power.
And then finally, Williams.
So Williams are the culprits on why everyone took the paint off. Because I think Williams did it first last year, and everyone goes, "Oh, that's a good idea. It looks fine." It looks
The same.
The same. I mean, I like the fact that they've got a little Duracell battery on the top. Like that
I think
gets
they
big points for me.
started that last year. So
Oh, did they? I didn't
Duracell
notice it
came
last
on
year.
board, and I believe by because at first it was just black, and I was like, "Oh, they should make it look like the battery." I believe by the end of the season they made it look like the battery, but nevertheless, that is great branding. The Duracell battery.
Yes, yes. I do think this falls into the same category as the last couple, and it's just there's not a lot of sponsors, there's not a lot of stuff going on, but at least it's a little bit of a design. I don't think it's a super strong statement, so I still think it should be close toward the bottom, but it's not terrible. I think it's just fine. I know people got really hyped up about that maybe it would be like a Gulf livery, kind of like how McLaren had run a couple times back in the day, but yeah, I don't know where to put this one, man. This one's kind of tough. Bottom chunk for sure. It's better than McLaren. I could
In
say-
general, I like it more than Red Bull. I do.
Okay.
I just think visually it's more exciting to look at. I wouldn't put it above Mercedes though, because I think when they're on the track, the Mercedes is going to look more exciting than this, even if it is boring.
Yeah. Okay, so should we go through the final rankings then?
Yeah, I think we should.
All right. So last place is McLaren. Easy decision.
Yep.
Red Bull after that. Then Williams, Mercedes, Haas, and then the top 5 are AlphaTauri, Alpine, Aston, Alpha, and Ferrari. It's a lot of A's all in a row.
Yeah, I would
I feel
say
pretty good about that.
I agree. There's something about the Alfa Romeo. While I love it, it is interesting to me to be second, but I think that this is fair. And I do think the Ferrari at the moment looks the most exciting. But again, it's like the on-track rankings change depending on where they're racing. If they're under the lights, some of these cars look super different.
Yeah.
So
Of course. Yeah. Cool.
that's the liveries. All
We
right.
did it. We're almost there.
Now we should talk about the preview of the season. What I actually do want to run through real quick is the teams and their team principles. Because over the break, a lot of that changed, which was in unexpected ways. So let's I've got like a thing here from the F1 Instagram that kind of just like it goes through them all. So we'll just go through them as I can see it here. By the way, the links to this and the liveries and everything will be in the show notes for the episode if you're not watching the video, so you can follow along at home. So we have Red Bull, Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, Christian Horner, no change.
Yep.
Same, obviously, Mercedes, Hamilton, Russell with Toto. Alfa Romeo is Bottas and Zhou Guanyu with Aluni Bravi as the new team principal.
Yeah. Right. And I think that obviously that's Alpha are going through a little bit of a transition right now since they're I don't know the exact percentage. I think Audi have purchased like a 50% stake or something, and it's growing or something along the lines. But I know Alpha are certainly, this is the last year I believe that the car will be called Alpha. It is certainly in transition. They've got Andreas Seidel on board, not as team principal, but I believe as I'm gonna forget his title. But, like, I think it's like
He's
CEO, I think,
basically
right?
CEO if he
Yeah.
hasn't got that title. He is effectively. I expect Seidel to operate in a Zach Brown-like manner
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's a very reasonable assumption.
because
Yeah.
Zach is the CEO, but is
Mm-hmm.
not team principal.
Right.
I always find that interesting the way some teams are made up and how the balance kind of shifts.
Mm-hmm.
Because like Toto and Christian are both CEO and team principal of their teams. Zach is
Yeah.
CEO, but he is not team principal. But he is almost fulfills the role of team principal publicly,
Yeah.
outwardly. It's very intriguing the way that they kind of balance that out. But yeah, so Andrew Seidel moved over from McLaren, where he was team principal of McLaren. He's now running the Alfa Romeo outfit in preparation for Audi, is the expectation that that's why he's there.
Mm-hmm.
And Aluni Bravi has been putting as team principal, but I expect we're going to see Seidel more often than we saw him at McLaren. I expect we'll be seeing him around.
Yeah. Yeah. So AlphaTauri,
Yep.
fairly similar. So
Yep.
we've got Yuki, we've got Nick DeVries, who is of course coming in, who did have that terrific super sub tryout last year, as well as Franz Tost, who probably the most quiet of the team principals.
I like that we got some of him Drive to Survive this year, though.
We
got,
did.
Got kind
It
of
was
a bit
nice.
of him.
And then for Aston, we've got our boy Lance Stroll, who we can talk a little about, is having a little bit of a time right now. We've got Alonso, who of course has moved over, and our buddy Mike Crack. Mike Crack. I will say it correctly. Mike Crack.
He's never heard that one before.
Nope. Nope. So Mike Crack, wonderful head of Aston and great, and I'm not gonna make any more fun of his name.
He was coming from BMW. He led motorsport there. So
Yes. And he was fully around last year. I think last year was his first full year as far as being part of Aston, I believe.
So, wait, was he the team principal last year?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yes, he
double check
was,
that.
wasn't he?
Yeah. No, he came on last year because I mostly know this because
Yes. My brain,
there's
you
a-
know, I feel like I don't never really seen the guy. So in my mind, it was like, oh no, he's new. But yeah, he was there last year as well. Huh.
Yeah. So moving on to
By the
second
way, just
part,
real quick about Alonso, how funny when he's like, I'm the villain. Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was
I
good, man.
loved it. I was like,
He's like,
yeah, you
"Whatever."
are, baby. You're the villain.
Yeah.
And we love you
He's
for
like,
it.
whatever. So second half, we'll go through a little bit more quickly since there's not quite as many changes over
Oh,
here.
I think you're wrong. This is the biggest change.
Actually, you're right. No, there's a change in every one. I lied.
Except
so we've
Kunta.
got
The biggest change, and the reason that I think a lot of these changes ended up occurring is because Matthias Binotto was fired. The
Yes.
rumor is, the rumor was, it was all about Leclerc. That their relationship broke down at Silverstone, the most important race of the year, when Mattia was kind of wagging the finger at him, and that changed everything. And so apparently Ferrari really believe in Leclerc and care more about building the team around him than anybody else. I understand that, right? I think he is their best chance to have a world championship. Ferrari obviously had a disappointing year in the middle towards the end as well with strategy issues. Ultimately, someone's got to pay the price for that.
Yep.
In comes Fred Vasseur, who has a very good relationship with Charles Leclerc.
Yes. And obviously, previously team principal at Alfa Romeo, so a dude with a very solid CV and already had some sort of Ferrari links. So I'll be curious to see how he's able to put his stamp on the team. But man, talk about a job that I wouldn't want. That for being team principal at Ferrari seems like the most pressure-filled, terrible job.
Yep. Because he's not going to change everything in 6 months.
I actually think, obviously, there were problems at Ferrari. I actually thought that Mattia did a pretty good job, especially trying to change some of the culture and not just firing people every time something went wrong and trying to build something in a little bit of a better way. But yeah, I have nothing but the best of hopes for Fred. I hope he's able to work it through and it's all great. But man, it's a rough job.
Not good to be Carlos, I feel like.
Yeah.
Right now.
I do think Carlos has been doing better. Right?
No,
I
he
think-
had a good season and he had some great success. But my point is, right, and it's just, I've been thinking about this. There isn't really anywhere else for Carlos Sainz to go. I think this is the best place
course.
for him because
Yeah.
the other two teams above him, or the other two teams around, I should say, it's not. It's unrealistic. But if you're Carlos Sainz, you got to look at like Red Bull and be like, well, they built the whole team around Max. They're very clearly building this team around Charles. Like, what is my place? I think we're about to enter a complicated year for Carlos.
I actually kind of disagree. I think, I agree with the general thing. I actually don't think this is necessarily going to be that rough of a year for Carlos. I think he had some struggles last year, 100%, right? He did not get on top of the car as fast as Charles did. But I think Carlos, by the end of it, was bang on and pretty much doing exactly what he needed to do. And I think going into this year, hopefully he has his footing pretty well sorted. So I actually am not too worried about him, but we'll of course see.
Mm-hmm.
Going down the list, we've got McLaren.
Yep.
So we've got Lando, who's the only remaining main core person there. So we've got Oscar Piastri, who we've already talked about a little bit, but is coming in incredibly highly rated. Although McLaren's not looking too good this year, but I guess we'll go about that in a second. And then we've got Stella. I believe is it Andreas Stella?
Andreas Stella, yeah.
Andreas, yeah.
Because it's helpful. They went from Andrea Seidel to Andreas Stella. Nice and easy. Zach can only remember one name, and so he just employs Andrea. That will do for me. Nice and easy.
Yeah.
Otmar Safnauer and Alpine is team principal, of course, still. Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly. There is apparently a rivalry there, which we may see resurface itself. Just like over at Haas, where Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hülkenberg, with the very famous line that I will not say on the show, but was repeated many times, and I really appreciated that at the end, where they both just said it again. Gunter is gonna have a fun year, I think. I think that this is a great driver lineup for Haas in theory.
I agree.
My concern for Haas is that they were like, hey, it worked really great when we brought Kevin back. Let's just do that with someone else. And they're like trying to replicate that. I actually do think it's going to work, but I'm not sure if it will. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I'm fairly confident. I think they've got two drivers who can outperform the car. And I think if the car is remotely close to the midfield, they will do a pretty good job of doing it. I think this is, out of all the teams and all the cars and all the drivers and everything combined, this is probably the best overall pairing of driver sort of skill and what I hope to be car, performance and whatnot. I think actually Haas are in store for a good-ish season. I don't think they're going to go anywhere crazy, but I mean, obviously they started out last year really strong, sort of fell off, but I'd like to think they can stabilize somewhere, well clear of like Williams and some of the back markers.
Yeah. I am hoping for good things for Nico. I like Nico Hülkenberg, and I would like to see him have a good year. In general, actually, I would like to see Haas have a good year. I think that would be a really good story for this year, would be some success for them. And they tried the double rookie. That did not work. So now try double vets, right? Like, we'll do it that way around. I think it's a better move. For their car and what they have. Yes, I think it is better to put people that already know how to do this in those seats.
Yeah, totally.
All right, so now in at Williams, we have Alex Albon. We have Logan Sargent, who I'm expecting is going to become the favorite of many new fans to the sport, many Americans, right?
I don't think he will. I don't think that's going to be.
Why? Why do you think this?
I don't think that many people are going to know or care who Logan is. I know that he is obviously American, but like that's going to get a little bit of press. I think being American, but being arguably one of the least qualified drivers and the worst team on the grid is probably not going to bring him that far up. Obviously, wish him nothing but the best. He's got this shot, but he was not electric in sort of the junior formulas. He kind of got in through a series of sort of, whether it's, through just a series of events, right? That was probably not exactly the plan for him to actually get that seat based on the whole musical chairs that happened last year. So pretty solid. And then, of course, it's James. James defected from Mercedes. James Vowles is now over at Williams as the team principal.
This is a smart move that, to me, feels like It feels like Mercedes is involved in this.
No, get out of here with your shenanigans. Look, I think it's really straightforward. I know there's a lot of speculation that, James is going to replace Toto when he eventually retires, and they sent him over to Williams as a shot. And look, I think it's a lot more straightforward than that. James does not have a lot of, or did not have a lot of upward mobility at Mercedes.
Yes,
he pretty
of
much
course.
hit the point.
Yeah.
He has the opportunity to become team principal at a team where there's very little downside. They already are quite bad. They're not he's not going to ruin his career by spending a couple of years at Williams and then trying to decide wherever he wants to go. But at least he will get that sort of free experience. So I actually think that this was a pretty smart move from him.
Oh, I do
I don't
too.
think it would be difficult at all for him to go back to Mercedes if he wants to potentially become team principal at another team, or maybe bring Williams up. I think there's a lot of upside here and not a lot of downside for James in making this move, especially because it seems like it was quite Mercedes weren't upset. He spent so many years with the team. It seems like it was about as kumbaya as possible. So I wouldn't be too concerned about it.
Oh, I'm not concerned. That's what I'm saying. I think that Mercedes were very, very okay with it because it left the possibility that if, you could come back to us one day once you've got that experience. I don't think that they're placing him, but I feel like it was maybe a conversation of do you think, what do you think? And it's like, no, this seems like a good idea for you. You should go and do this. This is the only progression you can have. And the reason I say it is, I think it makes sense for him to be at a Mercedes engine team, right? It's what he knows. And it would help him if he wanted to move back there in the future and take on a different role. We're going to do our predictions in a minute. This isn't one of my predictions, but it's just something I wanted to talk about, which is I want to talk a little bit about Logan Sargent. I've been thinking about this. I think Williams potentially made a mistake here. Now, I don't know his skill. I've not seen the guy drive, and I'm looking forward to it. And I hope, like with all of the rookies, that he's going to do a great job. I want him to do a great job. I haven't heard a story of a rookie where it was like, "Ooh, he just made it." Right? And it's always this guy won F3 and F2 and he's gone to Formula E and he won that as well. And it's it's always hit after hit. And he's just oh, he just squeaked in on one position on a race at the end to get his super license. And my concern is that Williams got too overexcited about the possibility of putting someone from their own driver academy in on the seat. I know why you would do that, because how long do you want to be just Mercedes' team to just train up their people, right? I understand the push, but I do wonder, would Daniel Ricciardo maybe have been a better fit for you? I think maybe.
I don't think they had the budget for Danny Rick.
That's
also,
true.
I don't think Danny Rick would have done his career any
Say
favors.
Mick then.
Yeah, I would say Mick was probably a smarter move. But look, man, Williams are in a very, very bad space. They need to make something happen, and it feels like they're just swirling down the drain of Formula One, which is so sad for a team. Which, if you're a new fan, obviously, a lot of us are, you've only known Williams as the literal back markers. But it's easy to forget that not that long ago, Williams were absolutely destroying everyone. Everyone fought to be part of Williams. They were dominant. They won so many seasons. They had so many absolutely legendary campaigns. And it's sad to see Williams where they are. I'm hopeful that they can start to turn things around. But the problem is that it's a lot easier to slide down the order than it is to work back up, right? And I think once you come down and those years of sort of technical debt and sort of brain drain and lack of investment, all these kind of things add up to make it incredibly difficult for you to outcompete everyone and sort of gain all that stuff up. So I very much hope that they are able to do well. Good job, Logan, on getting a seat, and hopefully you take this year well and you're able to, continue on. But yeah, it's rough, man. It's rough.
So before we give our predictions to finish out this episode, as we're recording right now, it's a day before the first free practice session in Bahrain, but we've had testing. Testing this year was nothing like testing last year, where, for obvious reasons, testing last year was who knows? And it was bananas. It was wait a second, all the cars are different. Mercedes is terrible, right? And it was just there was lots and lots of stories about things that were going on. And this year, the stories are pretty simple. McLaren, probably the two biggest headlines are McLaren is struggling and Aston's surprising. That's kind of the two things that came out of testing. Everything else, you can kind of just fill in the blank for what you thought was going to happen, right? Red Bull's dominant, Ferrari's looking good, Mercedes is better, but still not enough, which is, break my heart. But who knows? But break my heart. But it's now the interesting thing is like, well, when we're on the track, are we going to get Aston versus Mercedes? Like, what's going to happen here? So that's the thing we're not sure about.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think those two big stories are absolutely. You've got to consider that McLaren looked awful, and they didn't have a great 2022, right?
No.
Like, I mean, the only reason they got even close to competing with Alpine, Alpine and specifically Fernando had a million engine failures and problems, and Lando was an absolute rock star and dragged a ton of results out of the car, right? This car looks, based on testing, mind you, early result, but that base and as well as McLaren, some of their statements seems bad, seems not good at all. And you pair that with the fact that they've got a couple of what seem to be quite talented drivers. Well, obviously Lando is super, super talented, but it's not looking good for them. And Aston look like they are on fire. Mind you, having Alonso in the car is always great. He does nothing but impress at how unbelievably good and talented he is. No matter how many grandpa jokes they might make or villain or whatever, he's an incredibly talented driver who I feel like if Aston could give him a car remotely worth fighting for the championship, he would absolutely be in there, right? I just think he has done such a terrific job. So I'm excited to see. Now, mind you, there are some heavy speculations right now about Lance Stroll, who had some kind of biking accident. He missed preseason testing, and I know as of recording right now, I still don't think he's confirmed
This
for the
morning,
race.
you haven't seen it. It happened earlier this morning. They confirmed
did he get
him this
confirmed?
morning, yeah, which I'm still not convinced about. Like they've done it, but
Okay.
it's like we're going down to the wire on this surgery he's had here. But yeah, they said this morning he will be in the car this weekend.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, that's good news because I know that was clearly a difficulty because essentially they had two people who had never driven Astons before doing the testing. So I know Alonso specifically was saying how it would have been nice to have Lance there because some of the things he thought might have been weird could have just been carried over from last year's car and whatnot. So that is terrific. I'm glad to hear that. So good for Lance. Hopefully that he's able to do a good job. I think people clown on Lance a lot because obviously it's never a good look when your dad owns the team and you've got a guaranteed seat and yada, yada, yada. Like I get that. But also why I don't think Lance is at the sharp end of the grid as far as talent goes. I also think he's more highly rated than a lot of people give him credit for. And I think with the right car and with a teammate like Alonso, I actually think that could be a really solid team this year. I don't necessarily buy that they're going to be fully fighting at the top. And I'm going to get into my prediction here in a second. But I think that if they don't do much better than they did last year, I'll be incredibly surprised.
All right, so predictions. I am champion of predictions.
Oh, you did destroy me last year, so that's fair.
So I'm gonna go first actually, because I want to piggyback on something you were talking about a moment ago for my first prediction. We're gonna make 3 predictions for the season. This time we're actually doing them before the first race begins, which is good. Last year we did not do that.
Yeah.
Prediction number 1: Lando Norris outqualifies Oscar Piastri in every session that he finishes.
Okay, not saying like Q1, Q2, Q3. You mean like he is going to, on the whole of it, 23-0.
Mm-hmm.
Whoo! That's a bold one, man.
Provided that he doesn't crash, right? So like every time, every qualifier that like Lando actually completes, puts in a time, he will outqualify Oscar Piastri.
That's bold. I would not make that bet.
No, it is bold. I'm going bold. I'm going bold to this
Yeah.
one. My reasoning for this is it is a history of Lando, right? Like he destroyed Danny, I think every single time.
No, I think Danny had. It was like 21-2.
Okay.
It was close, but I don't think
Close enough, right?
Yeah.
I know Oscar Piastri is great. Like I know this because enough people have told me. I haven't experienced it myself. This is nothing on Oscar. It's like Lando, I think, is world champion material. He's just not in the right car, and we know that. And I think that Lando knows how to drive a McLaren. And so I'm expecting that's what's going to occur.
I'm
going big on it.
Bold.
I'm going big on it.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think Lando will take the overall qualifying count this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be a lot closer than a clean sweep. But
well, this was
enough,
my original prediction was that he would outqualify him more. I was like, well, that's boring. So I decided I would go with a big one. Because if I'm wrong, so what? But if I'm right, how good will I look? You know what I mean?
You will look like a genius.
Mm-hmm.
You will look like okay. I've got the safest prediction in the universe. Red Bull, fastest car, Max. wins the drivers. I think we should put that on the table. Very,
Oh,
very
snooze
table
fest.
stakes.
Come
Yeah,
on.
look, man. I'm just trying. Look, I got whooped last year because I got a little too punchy. So I'm gonna do just another nice,
All
safe
right.
bet. Obviously, Max is gonna run away with it this year. I don't see anything like. I would be very surprised if it is not a blowout. Like, okay, if you want to be more bold about this, how about this? Max clinches the championship with 3 races to go. How about that? Is that better?
I mean, marginally, but yeah, that'll do. I'm going bold again, right?
Oh, okay. Geez, you get the lead here, so you're just like, whatever.
Why not? I mean,
All
let's
right.
have some
Go
fun
ahead,
with
go
it. Red Bull win the first 5 races,
ahead. Okay, that is bold.
then things start to get shaken up.
5 races in a row.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
Red Bull are destroying the beginning unless they have some. So this is my like
Yeah.
wider context around this, right?
Yeah.
Last year, Ferrari were like, "Ooh, look at Ferrari," and they had a few races in the bag, and then Red Bull took it from them, right?
Yeah.
And then things started to change, and it started to domino back and forth. From testing this year, it's like that Red Bull seems perfect, right? And so I just feel like Max and Sergio and what seems to be a flawless car from testing. Like,
Yeah,
yes, right. Like they're just going to destroy it until some teams start to, maybe Ferrari can start to like
Sure.
put something better together. I just think naturally throughout the year, as we saw last year, things started to get shaken up a little bit. I think it's just a natural thing as some teams would progress. My only thing is Red Bull at the beginning of last season had some real reliability problems. I think that could be the only thing that could stop them is if they have reliability problems. So I'm assuming that they won't. And I feel like if they don't, Max is going to win the first 5 races. That's not my pick. It's Red Bull will win the first 5 races, but that's what I think is going to happen. But by race 6, somebody else has taken it.
Bold. Well, I'm not going to be as bold with this next one, which is also much more like sort of constructor based. It's going to be about Aston. I think Aston are going to at least finish top 5. I could push for top 4, but I'm
Best of the rest.
Safe. Yeah. Well, I still think it's going to be close with them and Alpine. Alpine have not shown their pace at all. I don't know how fast they are, but I think Aston have a real shot of at least being top 5. So again, because I lost last year, I'm going to go a lot safer with my predictions.
Yep.
I'm going to do the obvious one that no one's going to be surprised about. I think Aston, top 5 in constructors, easily could be top 4. I don't think they'll be top 3 or top 2 or anything. I think they will be 4th or 5th in constructor. But I'm just, for safety, I'm just going to say top 5.
So I hope this is true because I would like this to happen. Like I have a soft spot for Aston Martin. I would like them to perform better than they have done in the last couple of years. And I also feel like they kind of have to because of the money they're putting in. And they've got a huge investment over the next few years, right, of building these facilities and doing all the stuff that they're doing. If they can't start to put in better, like if their goals are realistically to win, and I feel like every team says it, right? But I don't believe them all. I don't, right? Because 10 teams can't all win, right? But they all say they want to win. They all like, we're going for the win. But I actually believe Lawrence Stroll wants to do that.
Yeah.
And he is putting the money in. The problem is, I don't know. I don't know if Lance is a problem. Like I think Lance Stroll is a better driver than a lot of people give him credit for, right? But if they realistically want to be the world champions, they need a different lineup than the lineup that they've got.
I don't fully agree. If the car is fast enough, I think Alonso could crush it. I think Lance would do a reasonable enough job.
All right, I'm going to ask you that question then. Like, we're going to put that back on you. If Aston Martin had a car close enough to Red Bull, let's say he was driving this. If you put Fernando Alonso in last year's Ferrari, do you think right? So like, as in like, it's good on pace, right? Like, let's not say it's in the exact same car as the Red Bull because that's not possible. Put him in the Ferrari. Could he have been world champion realistically against Max?
Ferrari would. I think no driver on the face of the earth could have made Ferrari world champs last year.
All right, let's say let's put Alonso in as Max Verstappen's teammate.
I don't think he would beat Max. I
No.
think he'd be a hell of a lot closer than Checo, and I think it
Yeah.
would be the most exciting pairing by a lot.
100. But this is me. I'm testing your like.
Yeah.
Because what I said is I don't think that Aston Martin with their current driver lineup could be the world champions.
Yeah. I think they could. I think, to me, I put Alonso in the very much upper elite class of drivers, which would be Max, it would be Lewis, it would be Alonso. I would say George is on the bottom, but I think he's still part of that, and I put Lando. I think those, to me, those are like the absolute top tier drivers in the sport right now. And I think Alonso, considering that he, I guess, not counting Lewis, is older than most of them by like 2x or whatever, is super impressive.
He drives a different way.
Yeah. No, it's just
It's
unbelievable.
a different way of driving.
Talent.
Yeah.
And he's been around for so long that he's got the experience where almost anything that could be thrown at him, he's dealt with at some point. And he is just this ruthless competitor. And it's nice because everyone's look, I know he might be the villain. Everyone's too nice. Everyone should be friends. This is competition. Old school Formula One, people hate each other. People crash each other to win the championship. Like it was raw. It was real. Alonso is, I feel, the last little gasp of that. Everyone else is just nice and very PR friendly, and we're all buddies.
Well, I mean,
blah,
the thing
blah,
to
blah.
remember is like Lewis is that generation, but he just changed his style. I think.
Yeah. Lewis was kind of what changed it, right? Because
Yeah.
even think about like Seb, right? Like Seb, obviously, in his sort of later years, has definitely kind of changed his reputation. Seb was also like. I don't want to say anything particularly mean, but
they
like
were
Seb
more
was,
vicious. They were more vicious
yeah.
than
They
are now.
People hated Seb. People hated
Yeah.
Seb back in the day, and it was only after he stopped winning and he sort of evolved a little bit that people kind of started to appreciate his character a little bit.
All right, so
All right.
wait, it is second point. Alonso, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to make a prediction about Alonso, but I couldn't decide out of Alonso is in the top 5 or Alonso leaves Aston Martin. Like, I think both of these things are equally possible.
No shot. No. He's on a multi-year deal. I cannot imagine him leaving, right? Like, especially with the car looking as remotely competent as it is, I think Alonso is going to be here for this year.
I hope
for
so.
Next year. He could be
But
even for longer than that.
I feel like I can't predict him. That's my point, right? Where, like, there was no... I mean, realistically, he was doing great at Alpine.
You know what? Here's what would get him out of the Aston. When he takes over like a Red Bull seat or something. That's the only thing I can imagine getting Alonso out of that.
Right, but that's
Aston
what I mean. I think he would do
up.
it, right? Like, because if he's not
Yeah.
getting what he wants, he will just leave. And that's kind of, so
But
my
I don't
thinking
think-
is like, what if that Aston Martin is the most unreliable car in racing, right? Like, and he DNFs like 7 times in the season. He's not going to want to be there anymore. So this is what I mean.
Yeah.
Of like, I feel like I can't. I wanted to make a prediction about him, but I just couldn't decide which area to go down because to me, I just feel like I can't read him, and that's what makes him so
Yeah.
exciting. But I think that there is a possibility he will, with that car is as good as people say it is, Alonso's going to sneak into that top 6 in a way that will be very exciting, right? But
I think he will outperform the car.
Yeah.
I definitely think he will outperform the car and certainly outperform Lance.
yeah.
Okay, cool. One official prediction each. Would you like to go next?
One rookie will outperform his teammate on points.
Is that rookie's name Nick DeVries?
I am basing this around Nick DeVries, but
Okay.
I'm giving myself, because my other ones are so specific and unrealistic that I thought I'd give myself at least one that I think I'm giving myself a good spread here.
Yeah. So just to be clear, the rookies this year are Nick DeVries for AlphaTauri, Oscar Piastri for McLaren. We've got Logan Sargent for Williams. You're not counting Hulkenberg, right?
No,
Like you're talking about true rookies.
true rookie, like first
Okay.
season in F1. And this is me, I'm also betting against like, oh, Piastri is like so much better than we thought he was. You know, like not only is he good, he's unbelievable. You know, like
Here's the thing: you're gonna get one of these two. It's
Yeah.
either that Lando destroys Piastri or Piastri beats Lando. But you've kind of like bet on both sides.
This is good prediction game, right? Because
you
I've
go.
also made it wide enough. I could get 2
Are
points.
you the kind of guy? Are you the kind of guy who goes to roulette and bets on red and black?
Hey, baby, I've got the predictions championship between the two of us, right? I'm predictions world champion, so like,
Fair. I won't argue.
don't hate the player, right? Hate the game.
Okay. my last one is a little bit of an unorthodox one. It actually has nothing to do with the actual drivers or the existing teams directly. I don't think, even though there's a ton of stuff that will be happening this year and there's the potential for new teams to come in, my prediction is there will not be an 11th team actually approved by the last race of the year. I don't think Andretti will find their way in unless they end up buying like AlphaTauri or something else. I don't think they're going to find their way in. I don't think Hyundai are going to be able to do it. Obviously, there's the Ford sponsorship at Red Bull, who, they've got that all kind of locked away. So my prediction is at the end of 2023 season, there will still be 10 officially confirmed teams on the grid. Now, if that happens next year, whatever, sure. But I think this year, as much as there are a lot of proposals to potentially add 1 to 2 more teams, I don't think it's going to happen. I think the existing teams are going to completely block it as hard as they can. And as much as everyone might want Andretti, Cadillac, and Hyundai, and whoever else wants to join, I don't think it's going to happen.
All right, so here's my question for you. What if we're 2 weeks away from the end of the season and the FIA says there will be an 11th team next year but doesn't say anything else?
My prediction ends at the last race. So anything happens after that?
But, so yours is like they have to be named. Like if F1 came out and said there will be 11... Oh, come on.
Yeah. No. I don't think it's going to happen. Okay. How would you want me to do the prediction then?
No, like
they never get it.
No. My question, like, so I think the way you're saying is like, it's like 2 weeks before the end of the season, and they're like, okay, next year, Honda is joining the sport, right? Where I'm saying if they come out and say there will be 11 teams, we will confirm which one during the winter break.
Okay, if there's a heavy rumor, my thought is for our last episode this season, we're going to wrap up the whole thing. At that point, when we record that episode, there will be nothing confirmed, and it will look very unlikely. Obviously, it could still happen, and if there are heavy rumors that it's going to happen soon or whatever, there clearly will be no new teams on the grid for 2024. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that a team will be officially not approved. There will be no teams that are officially approved to actually join the grid as a new team in the year 2023. That is my prediction.
Okay. Well, that's it.
Whew. That was a lot. We had a lot to catch up on.
I'm so excited, man. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I've got all the practice sessions in my calendar. Like, I don't usually watch free practice sessions, but I am just ready to go, man. I am ready to go. I'm so excited.
I am too. It's good to be back. It's good to also have Formula One back. I'm very excited to see how this season goes. But, did you just dip?
No, my camera just died. So if you're watching the video, my camera's had enough now. An hour and 17 minutes in, that's enough. So with that,
perfect way to end the episode.
With that, thank you for listening to this season preview of the Backmarkers. We'll be back with you later on in the season to do some. We'll fill you in on what's going on if you're not watching already. But come on, you're going to be watching. If you want to find us online, you can go to backmarkers.live where you can catch the video. Backmarkers.fm is where you can catch the audio. I'm Mike Hurley and he's Austin Evans. Until next time, say goodbye, Austin.
Goodbye, my friends, and good luck to the very exciting 2023 grid.
All right, and stopping audio.
I almost stumbled it, but I did land it. I did eventually land it.
Okay.
All right. Boy, I have not done this in a while. I got to remember how to do everything.
Save everything to Dropbox,
Yeah. Cool. Boy, that was a long episode.
Yeah. Well, we have so much to cover.
Yeah. Oh, man. At least short of the audio thing at the beginning, though. Actually, it was relatively smooth, I think.
I mean, yeah, and then my camera died.
That's okay. It was cute.
It's probably just overheated, but like the thing that I find funny is like it overheats, but I can turn it back on immediately. So it's like, well, what was the problem? You're fine.
What are you using again?
Sony A6400 or something.
There is, I don't know if you've turned on, but in the settings there is
I turned it on.
Yeah. So it's
like
obviously
ignore
not perfect,
it,
but it helps.
Yeah, like it used to be, it would shut off like every half an hour or something. So it is better, but it's still not perfect. Like it still wants to protect itself.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, thanks everyone for joining the live feed. I know obviously it's still different now that we don't have the episodes going live directly afterward. So I guess we'll kind of see how we actually go with as far as like uploading the content and everything for the next episodes and everything. But appreciate everyone coming and hanging out on a Thursday morning / afternoon with us.
Yeah. Well, and again, if you just keep an eye out on our social media, you'll see if we're going to stream more episodes. But otherwise, get them in your podcast app.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Whoo!
All right. Thanks, everybody.
See you next time, my friends.